Welcome, brothers and sisters. This is See You Next Time. On our journey today, we're negotiating the tricky paths of entitled parents shoving their clammy paws into the relationships of their families. We've got an aunt who's deeply offended that her family were not invited to her niece's wedding due to concerns of numbers and cost. And we've got a tale to tell of a mother-in-law who, well, she reaches a whole new level of entitlement. Let's get into it. This one's from LunarFire84. My mum throws a fit over not being invited to a wedding. Plus, am I a monster dong for thinking she overreacted? Context. A cousin of mine on my mother's side is getting married. Due to a limited budget and seats, my household was not invited, but we aren't the only ones who didn't receive an invitation. I completely understand though, and part of me didn't want to go in the first place. Mum received a call from her sister about my cousin's wedding. I don't remember exactly what was said, but I think her sister asked if we got our invitation yet. Mum said that we did not, and her sister said that she got hers. Unfortunately, Mum threw a fit and complained to her cousin through her great uncle. She thought that the cousin's family was being ableist. I have too many disorders for me to list, and nearly lost control over her emotions. Keep in mind that another household in the family did not receive an invitation either. I understand that seats and money are limited, but I think Mum was taking this too personally. After things cooled down, I talked to Dad about this and said that I've been stressing over what I was going to wear to the wedding ever since it was announced. I was thinking about chickening out and making up some excuse not to go, like a cold. Dad, being a fellow introvert, said that he didn't want to go either. We now have plans to go somewhere fun on the day of the wedding instead of the wedding. Am I a monster dong for thinking my mum overreacted a little? What a delightful cross of entitled parents and am I the asshole. You know, I kind of get the frustration of not being invited to an important family occasion, particularly if you feel like you are close with them. That said, it's not on to throw a tantrum about it, and roping in the grandparents to complain about them rather than having the balls to actually engage with the relative in question is pretty bad form. I don't know how full on her reaction was, but I'm going to say you're not a massive dong for thinking it was a bit much. This one's from Eaten by a Grue, 1988. Entitled Mum wants my house as payment for marrying her daughter. Hey Reddit, this is an ongoing gong show, so I'm putting this here so I can try to make sense of this. My wife's mother has been a malignant narcissist her entire life, to the point where she ended up not going to our wedding because she didn't want to go to the city we both live in. I even offered to drive her here and put them up in a nice house for the week of the wedding, and she decided to surprise us with a wedding that she threw on the same day as our wedding, without telling us ahead of time. Anyway, after almost a year of not speaking, she and my wife are trying to have a relationship. I'm not in favour because I have seen how she treats my wife, but my wife is a grown-up and I have to support her. A little over 6 months ago, my parents decided to give us their house, my childhood home, and we've been remodelling it. We moved in earlier this month, and my wife, with my blessing, invited her parents to stay over for a week so they could see their grandkids. We have twins, a boy and a girl named Luke and Leia, and see the city we live in. Everything went fine until breakfast this morning, when, over coffee, my wife's mum, mother-in-law from now on, drops a bombshell on me. So, OP, when I had my children, I wanted to have them so someone could take care of me when I get old. There's some history behind this, related to why she fought so hard against my wife and I's relationship, but that's a story for another time. I took a sip of my coffee, waiting to see where this is going. So, since you took her away from me, I think you should be responsible for me too. So, starting tomorrow, I'm going to live in your guest room. the room they'd been using for the past week. "I need you to drive us to our place so we can pick up our things." I don't follow. "Since you married my daughter, I only have one son to take care of me. It's only fair that since you took her, you now have the responsibility to care for me." My wife comes in. "Mum, I think you should pack." "No, you married this Filipino. I should at least get some benefits." "Mum, that's enough. We invited you to stay the week so you could meet your grandkids. But now I'm starting to see that this might have been a mistake." I came in. "Mother-in-law, I think we need to go. I'll take you back to your province, but you are not going to live here." So here's the current situation. Mother-in-law is locked in the guest room, packing, but we suspect that she's planning to squat in the room. Whenever we knock, she starts crying hysterically about how she's going to die old and alone, how my wife is a bad daughter for not supporting her mum, how I'm a bad son-in-law because despite having money and a nice house, I'm not supporting her, etc, etc. I'm on the phone with my cousin. He lives down the street from us and his dad is a justice in the Supreme Court, so hopefully we can get the police to trespass her. And we're working out a response. Update. So to answer a few questions. The wedding thing was a whole different story I told over a year ago, which, by the way, we are going to get into. Yes, I could have just taken the door off its hinges, called the cops, etc. All solutions that end with my mother-in-law in the news or a police blotter somewhere, and I'd like to avoid that. Just sending her back home is enough to keep her away, since it's pretty far and she's only been to my city twice, with this being the second time. The end of the story isn't as juicy as the story itself. My cousin's father, my uncle and godfather, sent over a police captain, who brought 4 police officers with him. The police managed to coax her out of the room and escorted her to the station, where a police vehicle from her province was waiting to bring her and my father-in-law home. The local captain didn't log the incident in the blotter, which keeps it off the books. So yeah, we're going to get into that story about the wedding. The mother-in-law who split our wedding, or why my wife and I had to have 2 receptions. I don't know how bad this will be compared to other stories, but I'm throwing this out into the world to quiet the anger in my heart. I met my now wife when we were working in the same job, teaching at a small rural school. I'm the child of an upper middle class family from a big city. She's the only daughter of a poorer rural family in a small town. We started dating and eventually got engaged. Someday I'll talk about all the shit my mother-in-law put us through. Now, in the years between starting dating and getting engaged, I convinced my then girlfriend, now wife, to start going to therapy. My wife has anxiety and PTSD, stemming mostly from how her mother treated her growing up. With therapy and support, she's learning to stand up to her mother, and that came to a head when we started planning our wedding. My wife grew to love the city we now live in, and the city where I grew up, and wanted to get married here. She picked a church and a pastor to perform the ceremony. I took care of the venue and food for the reception. Her mother wanted it to be held in their small town, at first because it was too far for her to travel, and after we shot that down, I promised I'd pick up her entire family and give them a place to stay here in the city, all on my own money. She seemed to give up the ghost. Or so I thought. The day before our wedding, my wife started to get messages from people in her family and from her town asking about the venue and the start time. Except the venue they were asking about was in her hometown. She told them it was here, in the city, and they said that wasn't what her mother told them. Turns out her mother, my mother-in-law, took it upon herself to arrange her own wedding for me and my wife, and thought she'd tell us the day before our wedding, and we'd just agree with her and give up our plans to get married in the city we live in. That was 6 months ago, and my wife and mother-in-law have still not spoken in a not fighting way. Wife says mother-in-law was selfish and controlling. Mother-in-law says wife is ungrateful and should pay her back for what she spent throwing her own wedding and reception. Edit. Holy crap, I did not expect this to blow up like it did. Anyway, to answer a few questions that came up. 1. Not all cultures are as independent and free-thinking as you think. A lot of cultures value strong family connections, and that cultural thinking doesn't just go away because you realise your parent is a horse's ass. Wife still wants to have a relationship with her parents, although it'll be on her terms and not her parents. My wife and I's culture traditionally has very large families. For reference, I have over 300 cousins, uncles and aunts. Bloody hell. Because of COVID restrictions and wanting to not be one of those people, my wife and I limited our guest list. What mother-in-law did was to invite people from my wife's family who weren't invited, as well as people from their small rural town, to attend mother-in-law's fake ceremony. Her hope was that she'd drop it on us the day before and hope that my wife and I, my entire family, our friends and loved ones, and my extended family would agree that her ceremony was better, and we'd just uproot our wedding and go to the one she held. So, what kind of fuck-witted batshittery is this? I have questions. I almost feel sorry for the mother-in-law. She must surely be all kinds of mentally ill, so yeah, almost feel sorry for her, but I can't quite make it all the way. If the kids are Luke and Leia, Skywalker, does that make mother-in-law Darth Vader? Nah, far too cool. More like Jabba the Hutt. The Force! The Force! Skywalker! And what makes her so sure that she's gonna die alone? I know women have a longer life expectancy, but it's not a guarantee. Is she planning to murder her husband? I mean, I wouldn't put it past her. And speaking of the father-in-law, what in the heckin' bollocks has he been doing all this time? Is he in agreement with Jabba? Or perhaps he's been beaten into submission after decades of living with a narcissist. The whole thing is making my head spin, just demanding that you move in. Not only that, but demanding you're driven home to pick up your stuff there and then. But the wedding! What in the crazy fucktard is going on? She really does seem to think it's the Jabba show, and everyone else is just one of the little people put on this earth to entertain her. It's clear that OP is absolutely ready to disown her, and has been for a long time. Hopefully these little escapades are sufficient for this monster's daughter to do the same. Yeah, she abso-fucking-lutely is correctly labelled as an entitled parent. Jesus fuck. And subjecting the kids to that influence in their life is, well, it's abuse. As we depart the festering rancour of r/entitled parents, a question emerges in my mind. It's a question that has been asked many times throughout human history, in all cultures and geographic locations, and that question is, what the fuck? And its corollary, what the fuck is wrong with people? Perhaps you'd like to gather a number of high net worth individuals with controlling interests in powerful industries all over the world to form an off-the-record forum, kind of complementary to the Bilderberg Group, with a very tight angle of focus involving the design and manufacture of trebuchets for launching babies, both roasted and raw, into the hearts, minds and mouths of the world's needy. I'm sure that all also have an intense desire to like, comment and subscribe, and just shoot the shit in the comment section. And remember, most importantly, the Illuminati is funded mainly by bake sales, with Dorothy Fleedenshawn's flapjacks being the #1 seller, netting £42 billion in the 2021-22 financial year. See you next time.